my name's Becky Draper, and today's yoga class is going to be about processing grief. I was watching this online show by Mel Robbins, and her guest speaker's name was David Kessler, and he was a grief expert, and he said that a lot of the emotions that we're feeling right now are associated with grief. And he said if you're not grieving like for a loved one, you're probably at least grieving for maybe losing a job, or maybe plans that you had this year have been canceled. And we're probably all grieving the life that we used to have. And he says that there's 5 stages of grief. So the first stage is denial. And then the second phase is anger. The third is bargaining. The fourth is depression. And then the fifth is acceptance. And he says that we don't really experience this necessarily in order, but we might bounce around back and forth between all of these different emotions. But what we're trying to do is get to the end emotion of acceptance, or the final stage of acceptance. And he says that the way that we get to this final stage is that we have to feel all of the emotions that happen from the first phase to the final phase. And he says that whenever you're feeling emotion, what we want to do is we want to name that emotion, because in order to feel it, we have to name it. And so today we're going to practice using our yoga as a way of processing different emotions and facing those emotions, so that hopefully in the end we can cultivate the final phase of acceptance. And so now if you can just take a nice comfortable seat and close the eyes and just start to get in touch with what's happening in the body. Notice maybe areas that are tight and tense, and then see if you can kind of relax those a little bit. And then notice how you feel right now. And notice if there's an emotion that you have. And if so, see if you can name that emotion. And then without trying to judge it or change it, just try to sit with it. And if it's uncomfortable, then practice sitting in the discomfort. The Buddhists say that if we follow an emotion long enough, every emotion will end in bliss. Good, and then bring your hands up into the heart center. And we're going to begin with one Om. We'll take 3 deep breaths and then Om. So take a deep breath through the nose. And then hold the breath at the top. Good, and then exhale. Another deep breath through the nose. Hold it at the top. And exhale. One last deep breath through the nose. Suspend the breath. And exhale. And then we'll inhale and Om. Deep inhale. And then listen to the cosmic echo. So let's start by bringing our right hand to the side, and then we're going to turn our head to the left. And we're just going to get a nice little stretch right here along the neck. And see if you can just soften this tense area. You may even want to move the chin around a little bit and just feel the different sensations. As you move the chin, you'll get different stretches. Just kind of experiment. And you can even bring your left hand on the head, just gently place it there. We don't want to like tug down the head, but you can just kind of use it as a little bit of leverage to go a little deeper. Good. And then back to center, switch sides. Now we're going to bring the left hand out to the side, turn the head to the right. And first just kind of sit there and feel all those muscles start to soften. You can start to move the chin, these like little subtle ways. So these aren't big movements, it's just little teeny tiny movements that can create a big stretch deep in the tissue. And just keep trying to soften this area and like let go of the grip you have. Just open up. And again, you can gently place the right hand on the head and just use it as a little bit of weight to pull a little deeper. Good. And then back to center. Now we're going to do some neck rolls. So we're just going to start to take the head around, but as you get to the back of the head, try to extend the neck long so you're not crunching down on your spine. And then go forward. I like to go nice and slow, feel each stretch along the way. Become aware of all of the different sensations. Remember not to crunch the spine on the neck. Keep it long. Good, and then go the other way. You can imagine yourself unwinding past emotions and just releasing all of that unwanted tension. Good, and then come to center. Now we're going to do breath of fire. So breath of fire is a really great practice to boost our immune system and clear out the lungs, so it's physically good for us, but it also helps us move all of our emotions from the lower chakras up and out. So emotions need motion, and so this is a good way to give them some movement. And how we're going to do breath of fire is I like to first teach it like you're panting like a dog. So take your fingers, index finger to the thumb, so this is Gya Mudra or wisdom seal. You're just going to place your hands on your lap like this. And then first we're going to pant like a dog. So we're going to stick our tongue out. And as you pant, you're going to pull the navel in with each exhale. Almost like the navel's pumping the breath out of you. Good, and we're going to continue doing that, but now we're going to pull the breath in. Good, and now we're going to continue doing that, but we're going to do it through the nose. And try to make each inhale the same as your exhale so that they have the same amount of length. And instead of making this like intense, see if you can make it relaxed. Then you can close your eyes and look up into the third eye space. Using your navel like a pump, like it's pulling these emotions from the lower chakras up the spine and out, up into the higher chakras where they can be processed with more clarity. And I'm going to shake it out a little bit, and we're going to come into downward facing dog. So I like to have a blanket handy. We're going to use it just a little bit in this class today. And if you have a block, get a block handy too. If not though, no big deal. I'll show you modifications without a block. So come into downward facing dog and just move the legs a little bit and start to get into the body and see what's happening. Notice if the hamstrings are super tight, or maybe your back is a little tight. And just start to move any way the body is asking. Good. And then step the feet forward and fold forward. And for this first forward fold, just keep a pretty good bend in the knees. You want your feet about hip width apart. This helps us open our hips a little bit so we can fold forward a little deeper. And then instead of rounding in, see if you can keep the knees bent and lift the sit bones with bent knees. Maybe even do a little twisting, just getting familiar with what's going on. And then bring the hands to the top of the thighs, push the thighs back as you extend the heart forward. Good, and then exhale, fold forward, and then on your inhale, we're gonna come up, but instead of rounding up like this, I want you to hinge at your hips. This helps us build stronger hip muscles so that we can stand more supported. Good. Now, when you're standing, I talked last class about using our feet better. So I'll go over that one more time. So you're gonna press the feet down, and then it's almost like you're trying to make a short foot. So you drag the front foot pad towards the heel. So it's like you're trying to make the foot shorter, and this will actually lift the arches and stabilize the muscles around the ankle. And so now I want you to look down at your ankles, and I want you to notice if they, relax the feet. So you're not pushing down. I want you to notice if your ankles turn in or if your ankles turn out. And what I want you to do, so first we have to acknowledge something to move it into alignment. So first acknowledge what's happening, and without judging it, just be like, oh, my ankles turn in. And now I want you to move your ankles so that they're in the center. And then again, press the feet down, drag the front foot pad towards the heel, and then bring your arms up. Good, and then exhale, fold forward, hinging at the hips. We want to build those hip muscles. Good, fold forward. And then on your inhale, bring the hands to the top of the thighs, push the thighs back and extend the spine forward as the sit bones go back. And I don't want you rounding like this. I want you to have a nice flat back and maybe even a small little lumbar curve right here by your sacrum. So everyone take your hand and see what's happening. We can't change something until we can actually acknowledge what's really happening. So we might think we know what our back's doing, but until we actually confirm, we don't know. So if your back's rounding, you'll feel little dinosaur bumps, and that means it's rounding. So you want to push, maybe even come up a little higher, push the sit bones back, and come up until you feel this little curve in the lower back and the spine flat. Good, and then exhale, fold forward, step the feet back into down dog. Good, and then lift the right leg up behind you. And then bring the right foot to the front of the mat. And then we're gonna drop the back knee down. If you would like to grab a blanket and put it underneath your knee, that's what I'm going to do. Good, and then push down with this back knee. So we're not just sagging right here, but we wanna push down with the back knee so we have a little bit of an indent right here. You can even feel and see what's going on. Good, and then press down with the front foot. Notice if the ankle is turning in, and if it is, try to move the ankle into the center, and then bring the arms up. Good, and we're gonna bring the right hand to the right hip, and lean to the left. Nice side stretch here. Good, and then come back to center. Take the left hand to the left hip, and then lean to the right. Keep pressing down with the legs so this lifts these right ribs higher. Good. Come back to center, bring the hands down into like goalposts. And then we're gonna start to twist to the right. And as you twist to the right, the tendency will be for this left hip to wanna follow. But that's more of a rotation than a twist. I want you to keep pulling the left hip back as you turn towards the right. And this will make the twist more at the navel. And the twist might not look as deep, but on the inside, it will feel a lot deeper. Good, and unwind. Come back into downward facing dog. And then we're gonna lift the left leg up behind us. Bring the left foot to the front of the mat, drop the back knee down. Good, and then again, instead of just leaning in, I want you to push down with the right knee. So you, right here, so everyone lean in first, and then feel this part of your hip, and it'll feel kind of hollow. And it feels pretty good stretch, but most of us are probably pretty flexible right here. And so now push down with the back knee until you feel a little bit of an indent here. Good. Now, once you have that indent, then really push down with the front foot. Make sure the ankle's in the center, and then push down with the back foot. And this will hopefully help you feel like your spine can get a little more lift. Instead of, if we're like this, we're just kind of crunching into our lower back. So when we push down, this helps us pull the spine up. And then bring the left hand to the left hip. Go to the left. Good, switch sides. Don't fall over. And if you do, put a smile on your face. Good, come back to center. Goalposts, and then start to twist to the left. And as you twist to the left, keep pulling the right hip back so the right hip doesn't follow. And just take a couple of deep breaths. Imagine yourself twisting out any old stagnant energy. Good, and then back to center. Push up into downward facing dog. Lift the right leg up behind you. Bring the right foot to the front of the mat. And then if you had a blanket, go ahead and move it. Then we're gonna come up into a high runner's lunge. You can keep your hands on the front leg for a minute. So before we come all the way up, I want you to look down at your front foot and notice if the ankle is turning in. And if it is, move it into alignment. And without judging, like, oh my gosh, my ankle always turns in, that makes me so mad. See if you can just accept that your ankle turns in and just move it. Good, and then what I notice a lot is the back leg will be kind of bent. So I want you to really push down with that back foot so the back leg's super strong. And then bring the arms up. Good, staying there. Arms up. Bring the right hand to the right hip, lean to the right. Good, left hand to the left hip, lean to the left. Good, and then come back to center. And then without pushing off the back foot, we're gonna try to come up and balance on this front leg. So I really want you to push down with the right foot without pushing off the left foot, just using that right foot, try to come up into a balance. Good. Now we're gonna come into tree. So bring the left foot either to the ankle or up to the thigh, but not on the knee. Good. And then slowly bring your arms up. And if this pose is challenging, see if instead of judging how you do it, if you can just be accepting of the way it is right now. Good. And then we're gonna slowly bring your hands to your hips, move towards something that looks like warrior three. Just start moving forward. And if this pose, if you fall over, maybe instead of being depressed or angry at yourself or judging where you're at, you can practice self-compassion and loving yourself and enjoying the process. Good, and then step back into a high runner's lunge. Bring the hands down to the mat. And then come into plank pose. Plank pose. Good, and then in plank, you can always lower the knees down. We're gonna lower about halfway and then push back up. Good, and then lower down about halfway. Push back up. Last time, lower about halfway. Hold. Keep pressing the hands down as you hold and come all the way down. Good. Now press the top of the feet down, hips down, knees down, feet down, knees down, and hips down. And then gently push up into a small cobra. Now drag the hands towards the pants as you pull your spine long, and then push up a little more. Good. Exhale, lower down. Go back into downward facing dog. Lift the left leg up behind you. Bring the left foot to the front of the mat. And then first just bring the hands to the top of the thighs. And then look down at that front foot. Notice if the ankle's turning in or out. So we have to first acknowledge or name what's happening. And then we can move it into the center. And then now notice if the back leg's just kind of hanging out. And if it is, really press down with the right foot so that right leg becomes super strong. If like a 2-year-old was gonna stand on it, it wouldn't budge. Stay there. Arms come up, and then first bring the left hand to the left hip. Reach to the left. Good, to come back to center, switch sides. Good, and then back to center. Now we're going to come up and balance on the front leg without pushing off the back leg. So I like to almost imagine it's like Dirty Dancing, and I'm jumping into Patrick Swayze's arms. So really, you can even take a little shorter stance here. Push down with the left foot, and jump into his arms. Yay. So now bring the right foot to either the ankle or up to the inner thigh, just not on the knee. And then notice where your mind goes. Is it angry that you can't balance? Or does it accept the challenge? Or if it's super easy and you're like, whatever, this is so easy, then maybe close your eyes and push yourself to fall over so you can practice accepting challenging situations. Good, and then now we're gonna bring the hands to the hips and then start to move towards warrior 3. So grief is when we don't accept reality the way that it is. So if it's hard for you to accept where you're at in this pose, see if you can practice non-judgment and just being wherever you're at without being angry or depressed or trying to change it. Good, step back. Bring the arms up. Hands down to the mat. Step back into downward facing dog. Now lift the right leg up behind you. Bring the right foot to the front of the mat. Drop the back ankle down and come up into second warrior. Good. So in second warrior, I want you to first look at this front knee. So most of us, our tendency will be that the knee turns in. So I want you to notice if the knee's turning in. And if it is, without judging it, just move it so that it's over the ankle. Now, as the knee moved over the ankle, notice if the left hip came out. And if it did, I like to actually take my left finger and push the left hip back. And as the left hip goes back, notice if the front knee turned in. So we're doing 2 actions that are kind of like in contrast with each other. So we want the knee over the ankle and the right hip back. And this helps us open up more. And then bring the hands up. Very good. Now notice if the shoulders are coming up to your ears. This is kind of like, I'm stressed out and resistant to the things that are happening. So instead, open, drop the shoulders down the back, and this will help lift the heart. Good, bring left hand to the left hip, reach up and back, and as you do this, really push in with the left hand, and see if this helps lift the right hips a little higher, and then notice if your left elbow is poking this way, and if it is, pull it back, and keep that heart open. And then without looking at your front knee, notice if it turned in, and see if you can pull it to the center. Good. And come back, bring the right forearm to the right thigh. Really push down, and then bring the left arm up and over. Good, and then bring both hands down to the mat. Step back into plank, and then at any point you can drop the knees. We're gonna lower about halfway. Come back up. Lower about halfway. Come up one more time. Lower about halfway and hold. And come all the way down. Press the top of the feet down, knees down, hips down. So when my knees go down, my hips go up, and when my hips go down, my knees go up. So we want to do both of them at the same time. Good, and then come up about halfway. Drag the hands towards the hip, and then pull the spine long, and then push up a little more. So I don't want you just crunching in on your lower back. I want you to try to get more of the bend right here where the shoulder blades meet. So instead of just coming up, crunching the lower back, drag the hands, pull the heart forward, and see if you can get the bend more in the shoulder blades, in the center of the back. Good, lower down, push back into downward facing dog. Lift the, actually I'm gonna switch sides. Lift the left leg up behind you. Bring the left foot forward, drop that back foot down, and come up into second warrior. Good, and without judgment, notice if the left knee is turning in. So first we have to acknowledge it in order to move it into alignment. So instead of being in denial about what's happening, we see what's happening, and then we decide that we're gonna change that. So we move the knee over the ankle, and then notice if the right hip came out. And without judging it or being angry at your hip, pull it back. And now both the knee is centered and the hip is back, and then bring the arms up. Then again, if the shoulders are coming out, pull them out and down, heart lifted. Take a couple deep breaths. Bring the right hand to the right hip and lean back. And then notice if this right shoulder is turning in. And without being depressed that your shoulders always turn in, see if you can pull it back. Open the heart. And then keep going. Maybe push the right hand into the right hip until you feel these left ribs get more lifted. Good. Come back to center. Bring the left forearm to the left thigh. Really push the left forearm into the thigh so that the head of the arm bone moves away from the air and the shoulder blade goes onto the back. So the opposite, everyone just lean down and bring the head of the arm bone up to the air. So this is what we don't want. Now really push down, the head of the arm bone moves away from the air and the shoulder blade comes onto the back. Good, and then bring the arm up and over. And as you do this, push down even more with the left forearm until these right ribs lift more. Good, bring the hands down. Step back into downward facing dog. Good, now we're gonna lift the right leg up behind you. And then bring the right leg forward. And then we're gonna turn both feet to face forward, and then you're going to fold forward. So what I want you to do is notice if you're rounding in your lower back. So I want you to reach back behind, because we can't really tell what's happening until we feel. So if we don't feel, we could be, it's kind of like being in denial. We're not really investigating what's going on. So I want you to reach around and feel. And if your lower back is rounding and you have little dinosaur bumps, then I want you to come up high enough so that the lower back is straight. So even if you have to come up on your thighs, or if you have a block, you can come up on your block. And then I want you to reach around, and until your back creates this little teeny tiny lumbar curve right here and is flat, that's where you know how far forward you can go. Good, and then just hold this there. Now I want to put a little bend in the knees as you pull the sit bones back even more, and then straighten the legs. And then we're gonna be here for a moment. So practice kind of folding in and just allowing. One of the ways I like to take in the pose, so like first we set up the alignment, but then we wanna go into the experience. So one of the ways I do that is I either follow my breath on the inhale, follow it out on the exhale, or I like to use a mantra. So I like to say sa on my inhale and nam on my exhale. And I'll just say it silently in my head. And this helps me move away from my thoughts, because sometimes in yoga I'll find myself thinking about my to-do list, or I'll find myself thinking about, which is like shows up as anxiety, Or I'll find myself thinking about things I didn't do, which shows up as depression. So instead of going either direction, see if you can pull yourself into the present moment and take in this experience. Because I don't think you're doing yoga to think about your past or your future. Good. Inhale, Sat. Exhale, Nam. And Sat stands for truth, and Nam stands for identity. So it stands for truth is my identity. But this is only the beginning. It's much deeper than that. Good. Now we're going to turn the feet out and away, about a 60-degree angle. We're going to put a pretty big bend in our knees, and we're going to come up into goddess pose. So now I want you to notice if the knees are turning in, and if they are, pull them back. So you're trying to make them over the ankle, and then bring the arms up. Good. And as this gets harder, see if you can accept the challenge and maybe bend the knees a little more, go a little deeper. And the harder it gets, try to recommit even more into the challenge. Sit with the discomfort and be okay with it. Sat on the inhale, Nam on the exhale. Good, just a few more seconds. Maybe try to bend a little more. Good, and then fold, exhale, fold forward. Good. And then now we're going to grab our block. If you have one, or a blanket, or you can use nothing, but I like to sit on a block, or you could put a blanket in between your legs and just sit back on the knees, and just take a minute to meditate. And notice how you feel now compared to the beginning of class. And I said at the beginning, our emotions need motion. And notice how after you've worked through the body, if you feel a little different about those original feelings, they've transformed a little bit. All right, so now we're going to lay down in what one of my yoga teachers likes to call supermodel pose. So come onto the right side, and then just kind of come down like a supermodel. Good. And then first we're gonna lift the right leg, or left leg, and then grab the left ankle or shin. We're just gonna go for this nice quad stretch. I like to do quad stretches like this, because I feel like we can get a little deeper. And as you pull the shin in, see if you can move the knee away from the hips and rib cage, so you're creating a longer side body here. Good, and after you've done the alignment, see if you can go into the pose and feel the experience. Good, and then now we're gonna straighten or turn. So now bring the left arm into the inside of the left leg and then wrap it around the pinky toe. And then we're gonna start to straighten the left leg. And then notice if your mind thinks like, oh, I'm so inflexible. If only I did more yoga. So like bargaining with yourself. If I did more yoga, I'd be able to stretch my leg. And if that's the case, see if you can just be okay with wherever your leg's at. Or maybe you're like, wow, look at me. I'm so flexible. I'm amazing. That's kind of like the same, or it's like the other side of the same coin. And so neither are helpful. So see if instead of being inferior or superior, see if you can just be in the middle and okay with wherever you're at. And take in the experience. Good, lower down. Now we're gonna switch sides. So come to the left side, supermodel. Lift the right leg, take the right hand to the right shin, and then start to go for that quad stretch. Oh yeah. I love a good quad stretch. And I really like doing it like this because it helps me get a little deeper. And it makes it more accessible for everyone. Keep pulling that knee away from the ribs so you're getting a super long stretch along the quads. And then notice if the shoulder's turning in. So if your right shoulder's turning in, pull it back. This will help open the heart. Good. Now we're going to bring the right leg, or right arm on the inside of the right leg. And then remember, grab around the pinky toe side. And then we're going to start to straighten. Good. And then maybe close your eyes and look into the third eye space and say sat on the inhale, nam on the exhale. And if any emotions come up, acknowledge them, maybe name it, and then pull yourself back into the moment. Be here now. Good, and then bring the leg down. So I like to use a blanket for the next pose. So if you have one handy, fold it. You may even want to fold it so that the blanket is extra high, on the highest setting you can get. And then you're gonna sit up on the blanket. And this helps us so that we don't round our lower back so much and we can get more extension in the spine. And then we're gonna take the right leg out and then bring the left leg in. It's gonna, okay, good. So now push down with the right heel till you get kind of a little bend in the right knee so that we're not hyperextending. And so push down with the right heel, right leg super strong, and then we're gonna start to turn the chest towards the right. And then this might be where you stay, but what I want you to notice is first, before you start bending forward, I want you to take your hand behind the back. So we wanna, instead of being in denial of what's happening back here, we wanna acknowledge and be real about it. Notice if the spine is rounding. If you feel a little dinosaur bumps, then you need to maybe lean back a little bit and push up until you feel the spine start to lift, and you'll actually feel a little tiny curve in that lumbar right above the sacrum or right above where your pants are. And then once you found that, then you can start to gently walk the hands forward, but only go as far forward without rounding in. So you want to keep the heart lifted, spine's long, and then just stop wherever you're at. And instead of judging it, or being mad that you can't go further, or depressed that you can't go further, or if you're all the way down to your knee, instead of being wow, I'm amazing, find that center where you're just in the experience, in the moment. And if you want, you can even take the left hand to the left foot. And then I like to push down with my right hand so that my ribs lift a little bit while my heart stays extended. Good. And then walk the hands back up. And now we're going to bring the right leg in. Left leg comes out. Good. And then again, I want you to first lean back, push down with the hands until the sacrum lifts and get this teeny tiny curve in your lumbar. So actually take your hand back and feel it. If you're not actually feeling it, then you're kind of in denial. You don't really know what's happening. You're just kind of guessing. So feel it, and then turn towards the left leg. Make sure the left heel is pushing down so that the left knee is lifted. You're not hyperextending. So leg is strong, and then start to pull yourself forward. David Kessler says that when we go through traumatic circumstances, we'll either end with post-traumatic stress disorder or we can have post-traumatic growth. And he says that the way that we move away from post-traumatic stress and into post-traumatic growth is by finding the meaning in unfortunate circumstances. So we want to be able to take challenging circumstances that may cause us grief and see if we can bring meaning and purpose into our life through that challenge. And that will help us move away from having post-traumatic stress and having more of this post-traumatic growth where our soul becomes more open and accepting, and we become emotionally stronger. It also helps our nervous system become stronger so that we can handle stress better. So it's not a matter of like whether difficult circumstances are going to happen. They are. They're always going to come. It's just a matter of how we learn how to process them. You can even bring the right leg to the right foot. Remember to not round in, keep the chest lifting. Good, and then walk the hands back. And then this last pose that we're gonna do before the meditation happens to be my favorite pose in the entire world. So you're gonna come into your hands and knees. And so either grab a block or a blanket and set it behind you. Come to your hands and knees. First we're gonna take the left leg around the right leg, and then we take the feet way out to the side. And then I want you to make the feet kind of like pointed, so they're half flexed, half pointed, but they're super strong. And then you can start to sit back on the block or the blanket. And this will help lift the sit bones, so we're not rounding forward, but we have this nice extension. And then again, reach back. Don't be in denial. See what's happening. If you have this little, if your back is flat, you have this little teeny tiny lumbar curve, that's where you want to be. If not, move it into alignment. And then you can stay here. This is like a pretty intense stretch as it is. Or you can kind of start to walk the hands forward. And this is one of those poses that you just you go inch by inch. So maybe you stop here for a minute, close the eyes, take it in. Maybe you go just another step further. Good, and as you do this, you want to keep moving the pubis down and away from the face, and this will actually help create more of a stretch on these outside of the hips. I read somewhere once that the hips are kind of like the junk drawer of our emotions, and so as you do this, you may notice different like built up emotions start to present themselves. And if that happens, just kind of acknowledge it, maybe even try to name the emotion, and then just feel it for a minute, just sit with it. Take a few deep breaths, and then maybe let it go, and then notice if something else comes up, and then keep trying to name the emotion. Is it sorrow? Is it regret? Is it remorse? Is it anger? Good, and then instead of indulging and like adding a narrative to it, like I'm angry because, and when we add a narrative to our emotions, that's how we indulge in the emotions. And so this actually grows the pain body rather than helps us work through it. So instead of attaching a narrative, just name the emotion and sit with it. Good, and then walk the hands back up. We're gonna switch sides. So come back to the knees. Right leg crosses over the left leg. Feet come out to the side. Feet are strong, like sickles, so they're not sickle, but they're pointing. And then sit back onto your blanket or your block. And then again, find out what's happening with the lower back. Don't live your life in denial. Try to be aware, so if through awareness we can move things into alignment. And then you may just want to stay here. This is a great space. Or you may want to inch your hands forward. And just go inch by inch, and then close the eyes and look into the third eye space. And just start to take deep breaths. And again, as these emotions come up, instead of judging it, trying to change it, just sit with it. And you can even move into a mantra. Sat on the inhale, Nam on the exhale. So our minds are always chanting something. So as we feel these emotions, our mind will try to attach a story to it. And one of the ways we can move away from what our mind is normally thinking is by chanting a mantra. This helps move away from what we would normally be chanting into something we want to chant. So it trains the mind to have new thoughts. the hands back up to center. And then now you can pause the video and just take a minute to do Shavasana. So I recommend doing Shavasana for anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. I like to lay on my back, turn my palms up, and you can even grab a blanket and cover yourself up and get comfortable. And then when you're done with Shavasana, come back and hit play, and we'll finish with a couple minute meditation. So now we're in our meditation pose, and we're just going to do this really easy meditation. So first you're going to take your left palm over your heart, and then take the right palm over your heart. And then you're just going to close the eyes. We want to look into the third eye space. So this is where our pituitary gland is. And when we look up into the pituitary gland, we create pressure there, and it secretes hormones into the body. And these hormones help regulate our emotions. Rather than like getting sucked up by our emotions, we can process them a little better. So hands over the heart, eyes closed, looking up into the third eye space. And then we just start to take nice deep breaths through the nose. So take a nice deep inhale through the nose. And then exhale out the nose. Just continue at your own pace. And then imagine yourself making a deeper connection to your heart. And your hands are sending good healing energy to the heart chakra. And as this is happening, you can imagine in your heart a ball of white light. And with each inhale, that ball of white light gets a little bigger. And with each exhale, you let go of any emotions that are holding you back from feeling bliss. And then you can even imagine with each inhale, you're breathing in this healing white light as the heart chakra glows even more and bigger. And then on your exhale, you can imagine yourself sending out white healing light to the world. Not only healing your own heart, but healing everyone's heart. Every living being's heart. This meditation helps us feel grounded and centered, and helps us move away from the pain body, which is the overindulgence in our pain, and helps us move into a space of acceptance and gratitude. Great, and then you can bring the hands down for a moment and just check in with how you feel. And notice the difference of how when you felt when you started class and how you feel now. And then bring the hands into prayer pose. Press the thumbs into the chest and the chest into the thumbs so that the heart lifts. Take a moment to thank yourself for showing up today.